Howdy, soldiers. I'm caffeinated and a little angry, which is a great combination. Happened a little in 2019, but 2020 is the year where lots of authors are getting exposed as being terribly crappy people, and it makes me angry. Because it's like, did you really have to tweet that racist thing online? I really don't think you did. I recently have just been binging a bunch of like anti-hauls in the makeup community, and how like, I'm not gonna be buying this because it's too expensive, I'm not buying this because, you know, you don't need it, what have you. And I really like that mentality of like, you don't need this just because it's shiny, or just because it's new, or just because it's fancy, or like this big brand came out with it. I was like, oh, I could do like an anti-haul, but with books. But then I realized that I don't know if I could do that, and I feel like I would get attacked for it. And because in like a makeup sense, you can separate it as this is a corporation making this product, whereas authors, it's one person who's the face and the name and the reputation behind that particular work. So if I say I'm not gonna buy the newest Anastasia Beverly Hills palette, no one really cares. But if I say I'm not gonna buy the newest V.E. Schwab book, like I did, but you know, if I say that, people are gonna be like, well, you don't like her, and like that's being mean, and like you're not, you know, supporting somebody. So it's like directly on that person. Plus I feel like even if I say like I'm not really interested in this book, and one of my friends is like, hey, it's really good, I'm like, oh, okay, and they'll like go and get it. So like, and while it's plenty fun to do those like big name books that I hated or whatever, I think it also goes back to that I feel guilty because I'm like, oh, I know how much effort and time went into this, so regardless if I don't like it, maybe somebody else will, or like I feel bad shitting on someone's hard work, you know? But I have come up with a list of people who have been behaving badly in a very public way that I feel I can no longer support. So let's just go over a list of authors who I'm no longer going to be giving my money to. I'm going to be talking about these things and these people in a very general sense, but I also got a lot of this stuff. If you literally just Google the author and then like Twitter drama, lots of stuff is gonna come up, and I'm not gonna be like gonna turn into this like drama channel where I like tell you what happened. I'll tell you in like layman's terms. Number one on this list, Sarah J Maas. Either I had at one point or I currently have all of Sarah J Maas's books, and I'm mad at myself. Her latest books, which have been the Court of Frost and Starlight and Crescent City, have truly been atrocious. I know a lot of people like both of these books, but you know what? As an adult, I'm telling you right now, these are bad. This isn't just like, oh, maybe someone else will like it, or like, oh, I'm too old for like the audience, this is for teens and I'm an adult. No, no, no. They're just bad. I don't know why people liked A Court of Frost and Starlight. That book was so bad, just like in general. I felt like I was reading fan fiction. The characters didn't do what they originally were doing, and I know that this whole like Nesta Cassian thing is supposed to be like sexy because like, ooh, she needs to like learn to trust a man, and she's like going through some hard stuff and he's gonna be there for her. It's just Nesta being a bitch. There's no redeeming quality to her. Cassian is honestly so much better off just doing literally anything else except for her. The storytelling of that book was bad. Like, it didn't tell a story, it didn't progress anything, and this book is incredibly popular both online and on TikTok. Book Talk, I know a lot of you are teenagers, and it's very obvious that you're reading smut for the first time and that's why you like this book. This had such potential to be a fantastic new series, but instead it's like Sarah J Maas on the same old bullshit. In all of her books, it has that like, I'm a male fairy and I'm so powerful and I might have some kind of magic that takes over me that makes me want to have sex with you and you can't do anything about it. Also, I'm very territorial but have great hair. This book just slut-shamed like all the characters, and there could have been like an underlying story to that where it was like, hey, yes, I like short dresses and wear a lot of makeup, and there's nothing wrong with that. But no, all of her characters are white and straight. There have been, I think, 2 people of color, and guess what? They both died. In the Throne of Glass series in particular, there's a big white savior trope slapped on the front, and I know there's been a bunch of drama with her and Susan Dennard, which like, they used to be friends, something happened, they're not friends anymore, whatever, but it was just like this long, slow, messy breakup that was also online, and it said that she's very catty and petty towards other successful female authors. I remember hearing in particular that she called Leigh Bardugo a incredibly ableist slur, but I cannot find that tweet online, and I'm curious to see like where it went. So Sarah J Maas, like, you let me down. I really want to like your stuff, and I can't get rid of this book because I lost my receipt and I can't return it, but I would. Then again, I also really like shitting on this book online, so that's I think why I keep it around too. The second author that I no longer support, that I actually have the physical book for, is Scott Lynch, and I'm so sad. Liza Locklamora is one of my favorite fantasy books, and then I found out that he's a sexual predator, and I'm like, ooh, that puts a damper on things. Damn it, Scott Lynch, why do you have to be such a good world builder? Couldn't you just not have groomed that 20-year-old? Came to light recently that Scott Lynch, who was I think 37 at the time, groomed a 25-year-old fan who was a then unpublished author, is now a published author. Alexandra Rowland is the girl's name, and she actually did this long blog post on it, and according to that and a couple other like online sources, she was a fan and he started flirting with her, and then he said he was in an open relationship, and then his wife got involved because he wasn't in an open relationship, and his wife like threatened her multiple times. I saw this argument online where like grooming is technically a term for minors, and she was not a minor at the time. It's just adults behaving badly, but it's like, you could have just not. Just because it's technically legal doesn't make it any better. Having a older male author take advantage of a younger girl because she's a fan and like use that to manipulate somebody because they hold you and idolize you, that's, oh, good. Plus, in this series, we get no female characters except for some flat one-dimensional fighters that are eaten by sharks within like 2 chapters, and then that one manic pixie dream girl that we don't even see till the 3rd book, and I haven't even read the 3rd book yet, but my friend told me that she's boring. So I'm never gonna read the 3rd book, and I'm really mad, and I want to get rid of this, but it's also such a good book, but I'm like, ooh, I don't know if I might have to just donate this right after I finish filming this video. And then an author that I'm really glad that I decluttered my books from is Ernest Cline, who does the Ready Player One series. Oh my god, we get it. You've memorized every pop culture reference in the 80s. That doesn't make you special. You're not God. Like, shut the fuck up. Get this whole like fighting back because you're a nerd and like being proud because you're a nerd thing. But it's this whole like, I'm better than you because I memorize every single pop culture reference of the 80s. And if like you don't get every single reference that I'm telling you, you're like a fake fan. And if you really like this, like you've talked, you know, me talking about books the whole time, like I get it, but I'm not gonna be over here like, you still read like middle grade? Well, like I've memorized the entirety of the YA section at my local bookstore, but like I guess you can like that. And then looking at the romance part of Ready Player One, it just has this like gross undertone of like, oh my god, you're such a good guy, such a nice guy for liking this girl who's like a size 12 and has a port wine stained birthmark. Oh my god, how do you do it? What a sacrifice you're making for all mankind to say that like you don't hate this girl's face. Plus, in Ready Player One and in Armada, it's this big thing of like grasping and putting in every single pop culture reference that you can possibly find or think of, and it's like, Ernest Cline, do you actually know all those references? Because like, I really don't think you do, honestly. And a lot of them don't even matter. It's just because like they're there, we need to put them in. And it's just so cluttered and overwhelming. And I'm sure a lot of people, including myself, just like skimmed paragraphs of like, I don't care about any of these things. Then we found out that Ready Player 2, the sequel to Ready Player 1, is going to be coming out soon. And you can bet that I'm not buying this. Mostly because I saw online this thing about how in the Oasis you can have sex with other people, and how like the main character decides to like virtually have sex with other people as like different kinds of people, like being a man, being a woman, being both, being like all, and I'm just like, this is not what, that part is just like a little creepy coming from a cis white man, so like you just need to sit your ass down. But yeah, this guy's a scumbag, and I don't really want to fiscally help him out anymore. And then the most recent person that I found out is not a good person is the author Jessica Cluess, and you know, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. I was like, whatever about that first series that she did, like, Shadow, Bright, and Burning, but I really enjoyed her House of Dragons book that just came out, and I was going to use it as an example in a couple of upcoming videos for things. Now I feel like I can't because she's racist. I don't want to describe the whole thing because it's very long, and there are also multiple, like, legitimate news sites that have run this story, so you can look it up online. But the Cliff Notes, Spark Notes version of this is that a anti-racist educator named Lorena Germain was talking about how originally in the school systems we're just reading a bunch of classic novels by like old white men, and how we need to update that with the times and incorporating people of color and queer authors into like the public consciousness, especially in schools, to help better educate and, you know, have people learn about different people and experiences, etc. And Jessica Cluess's very long Twitter rant, but it boils down to her saying we should keep these like white kind of racist books in our system because if we don't, then that's like anti-curiosity and anti-intellectualism because we should be using those to like teach people about how the past used to be white and racist. Like, what? And then when people criticized her for that, she responded very angrily and very violently, saying all that you're delusional and now you're all fools for thinking that way and you can go sit and spin on attack and all these like terrible things. And I'm like, whoa, girl, like, are you okay? Like, what is wrong with you? Oh my god. Like, how many mental backflips did you have to do to think that that was an appropriate thing to say on the internet, or just in general, which led to this whole like internet boycott of her and asking her agency to drop her, and I also do believe since then the publishing house and her agent have dropped her, so. And while even if you wanted to present that particular argument that, oh yes, we should keep all the books in the curriculum that were made by old white racist guys, she wasn't putting it forward as something to be critiqued or as a criticism or even as just an open discussion. She was just bullying and using that as an attack. Like, why does everybody have to attack other people on Twitter? Like, I just don't understand. Like, why can't we just all have civil conversations about it? Also, why do y'all have to be racist? Ooh, and lastly is an author that I also just decluttered 2 books off my shelf because I realized after learning even more about her that I definitely don't want her works on my shelf anymore, even though I did enjoy them, and that's unfortunate. And that is Mackenzie Lee, author of The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue and The Lady's Guide to Petticoats and Piracy, which were first praised for having queer characters in them. I like Gentleman's Guide good enough. I like that we got a bisexual male character in a historical fantasy, which was not something that I'd ever read before, and I liked that. There was some stuff about fans being like, oh, I think he's more pan or queer, and like really identifying with that, and then the author kind of being like, well, you're wrong. And then Lady's Guide was supposed to have an ace main character, and when I personally read it, I am not ace, I thought that it was good. And then I talked to one of my ace friends, and she said that it was very bad, and I honestly trust her word more than I do a lady who is not ace writing an ace main character. Trend of like writing marginalized characters from a group that you're not part of continued because her latest book I think was supposed to come out like last year or this year. It was pitched as this like lesbian historical romance, but then it turned out that one of the characters was trans and she just kind of like casually dropped that even though she is not trans or lesbian herself, and that other character is a person of color and they get called slurs and like get dead named and stuff, and it was like, that's not good. And then she did the classic poor behavior of any critiqued author, in that it means is that she attacked fans on Twitter, basically saying you're wrong and because I'm bisexual and I'm a woman I can get away with doing this because I'm part of that community even though she's white and cis and is not writing about a bisexual character. This is something I kind of want to insert here too, which is like, if you're not a part of a marginalized community and say you're white or you're a straight cis person, like why do you feel the urge that like you yourself should be telling that story? Because it's not your story. And for sure you can try and tell that story, but it's not your story to tell. And like, wouldn't it be better if somebody from that marginalized community told the story themselves, because then you have the actual life experience of somebody who's experienced that? Just because you're one part of a community doesn't mean that you get to lay claim on all of the community. And then the thing that's the wildest that I completely forgot about until I looked this up, I'm still like baffled that she thought that this was an okay behavior to do, and that is that she signed other people's books. Let me clarify, she signed books by authors who were not her, and she just like wrote something in them and signed them, and I'm like, that's not, you're literally like defacing somebody else's work. What are you doing? It was at an indie bookstore and it was supposed to be to help the store and, you know, oh, but it's like she signed on the author page that authors would sign on, and she also signed books by like queer and POC authors and like marginalized authors. Like, if you're an author and you go into a bookstore and you sign your own books, that's fine because they're your books. But if you just go and sign other people's books, like, that's so weird to me. It's not yours, it's not your property. If you own the book already and you want to like doodle in it, or, you know, there's plenty of people that I know that like mark up their books, and that's fine because they bought them and they purchased them. And plus, a lot of the comments that she wrote were like kind of snarky and like a little mean, and I'm like, that's even the worst. If you want to write a review on it or write like a cute little thing, write it on like a bookmark or like make a blog. Why are you writing in somebody else's book? Like, it's just rude and disrespectful, and I can't support somebody who just thinks that they're better than everybody else because they happen to be one type of diverse that is not a straight white man. Like, I know the privilege that she is just blatantly disregarding for herself is ridiculous. So yeah, there's I guess I'm gonna be saving some money this year and not giving it to some racist, bigoted people. It's difficult to go back and be like, don't you ever do these things or you're a bad person, or like, don't buy this person's book because then whatever, but it's also like, maybe don't buy this person's book who's like being openly racist, or like maybe don't buy this person's book who's like spreading a bad image about self-esteem and self-respect. Plus at this point, all the authors I just mentioned are like well off. Like, you know, you're not taking money away from some poor starving author. These are all people who have very established fan bases and influence, and they're not using that for good. I think I said this in my new adult video as well, which I'll link if I remember, but like, just be critical of what you're consuming. And you can definitely like these things. Like, I like the Throne of Glass series, but I'm also like, ooh, is there any people of color in this world or not? You might want to reconsider that before saying that it's like your favorite book ever, like what a good world builder she is. Like, absolutely. Say it's a fantasy world, it can be as white and straight as you want it to be, but also why would you want it to be so white and straight? You know, just, you know, something to consider. And when I break down what I like about each series is, you know, the adventure, the fantasy, the strong female characters, the queer representation, I can find those things in other books, and I can find those things in other books by authors who aren't racist and sexist and predators, and I probably can find those from smaller or marginalized authors, and I'm like, I don't need that anymore. The publishing industry is big enough that there are multiple types of book, and there are multiple types of the same book, and I don't need to go to those 5 people anymore. 6 people? English major, I can't do math. So yeah, leave your comments in the comment section below. Maybe, I don't know, name some people that you're not going to buy from this year so that I can also know, because I don't want to keep buying from terrible people, especially people who get into arguments on Twitter. Like, grow up. And also leave your favorite or underrated smaller author down below, because I always want to check out new people and give my money and support to people who actually deserve it. You know where to click to like the video, you know where to click to subscribe. I hope you guys are all having a nice day wherever you are, and I will see you all next week. Bye!